Dynamic blessings. Welcome back to the Synergistic Edge, where high performers win everywhere. I'm your host, Alvey Thompson Jr. And what I wanted to talk about today is in regards to why transforming your health can be so hard. And I also want to provide three simple ways of how you can make it easier. And I think this is a timely discussion because we're in the beginning of February. A lot of times you might have this idea that, hey, beginning of the new year, starting in January, I'm going to transform my health. Maybe you said you're going to go to the gym a certain times a week. Maybe you said you are going to hire a personal trainer. Maybe you started a new eating style, getting to bed earlier, meditating, praying more, whatever it may be. You started the year and you understood that there was certain changes that you desired to make. And now that we're over a month into the year, you're probably finding that it is harder to do than anticipated. And I would even venture to say this isn't your first time trying to make a big change, but this is probably your second, third, fifth, maybe 10th time looking to make change. And you keep running into this block. You keep getting stuck. You're not progressing like you want to. And what I want to let you know is that that's very common. And it's actually hard to transform your health. It's really hard to transform anything. But when I'm talking about it today in the health perspective, I want to share three major reasons why that is. And I would venture to say that you were going to resonate with at least one, if not all three of the things. And my goal would be after this podcast that you have a better understanding of why this has been difficult for you so far and have three ways that you can actually make it easier going forward. So let's dive right in. The first reason why it's so hard to transform your health is because it's hard to overcome habits. A habit is something that you repeatedly do without much conscious effort. And you have to think, if you want to create new habits around health, the first step in that is understanding that you have to take out bad habits. But here's the thing about changing your habits, especially the bad ones. As a human being, it is literally built into your DNA to go through what's called the path of least resistance. What does that mean? That means that your mind, your brain, works to make things as easy as possible. So if you've been doing something the same way for a long time, your brain doesn't have to use conscious resources to continue to do that thing. So maybe you're the type of person where you're stressed. The first thing that your brain tells you to do is go eat some unhealthy food. Maybe it's to run to some type of fast food, order some DoorDash, Uber Eats, eat those cookies, the cupcakes, whatever it is. That's your way of handling stress in that moment. And it's not something that you consciously think about. You don't say, oh, wow, stressful moment. There it is. Okay, now I'm going to go and eat the cookies. Like, no, a lot of this is unconscious. Stressful moment happens. Grab the cookies, eat the cookies. You have that sense of mouth pleasure. You find yourself relaxing, and you might have a little bit of pleasure in that moment. But obviously, long term, it got you into the situation you are now, where maybe you are heavier than you want to be. You don't like the way that your clothes fit. You don't have the energy. You're lethargic at work. You're lethargic when it's time to come play with your kids. And as a result, you said, hey, this year you want to make a change. So what are those habits that you have? I'll share some of the common ones that I see. I just shared the one about, hey, you're really stressed. What do? You go grab food. Another stress response is alcohol. I work with a ton of high performers, and a lot of these people will grab wine or grab a bourbon at the end of the night, to quote unquote, take the edge off. And what does that actually mean, to take the edge off? That means you have stress and you are looking to bring that stress down. But here's the problem. When you drink alcohol, again, you get that instant gratification in the moment. But what you're actually doing is you're putting more stress on top of your stress that you already have. You're using what I would call nutritional stress or chemical stress, and you're adding that on top of your mental, emotional stress. So again, whether it's the food that you're eating or it's the alcohol that you're consuming, you're using this type of nutritional stress, to combat the mental stress. But in the grand scheme of things, all you're doing is combining more stress to your system. And what does that lead to? Again, the weight gain, the muscle loss, the inability to think clearly, the loss of energy, clothes not fitting, etc. And again, those are all things that led you to want to create big changes this year. So for yourself, start to think about what are the habits that you haven't quite overcome just yet. And the first step is having awareness around it, because once you know what's there or you're aware of it, now you can decide to make a change. And remember, when you decide, that word decide comes from the, I believe, Latin word decidere. And decidere means to cut off. So when you decide to make a change, you are cutting off all the other options, meaning you're not going to do those things that you were going to do before. So again, the first thing that makes it hard to transform your health is overcoming habits. The second thing that makes transforming our health very difficult is being a slave to your excuses. Now, I'll say that again. It is so difficult to transform your health if you are being a slave to your excuses. So what do I mean by that? Let me explain it through a poem that I learned early on as I was joining my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, and it's called Excuses. And it goes like this: excuses are tools of the incompetent that are seldom capable of anything but excuses, excuses, excuses. Meaning, oftentimes we let our excuses, or quote unquote, you might say reasons, stop us from taking the proper step. These excuses can be your schedule. The excuse could be that you don't have time. The excuse could be responsibilities at work or at home. The excuse can be anything. You know what your specific excuses are. And granted, I'm not saying that all of those things aren't real, that you don't have a busy schedule, that you don't have a lot of responsibilities at home and at work, right? All of that is very true. However, that's not what's stopping you from transforming your health. It's your thoughts around those excuses that are stopping you from having the results that you desire. I'll tell you this, our brains are funny. Our mind is funny. The thoughts that we have are often very funny, and that we tend to believe things that are not true at all. We have these stories or these narratives that we create in our own mind that stops us from taking action. And again, majority of the time, these stories are not true. These are not empowering stories that are going to get you to the next level. Instead, it's a story that I say to myself where, you know what, I'm so busy, I have so much stuff on my plate, there's no way I'm going to get to the gym. Or I'm so busy, there's so much stuff on my plate, I can't cook my own healthy food. Or you know what, I'm so busy, I'm just going to pull into the drive-thru real quick and grab McDonald's to feed myself and my family. And now this isn't a judgment, but it's simply the truth. None of those things are true. You're simply deciding to believe those things. And because you believe those things, that belief creates your reality. Because at the end of the day, whatever you tell yourself is what you are going to do. Whatever you tell yourself is going to be a direct reflection of what you're getting out of your life. So if you're telling yourself that you are quote unquote too busy to train, to recover, to manage your stress, to go to sleep early, to decompress after work, to disconnect once you leave the workplace, if you're telling yourself any of these things, well, guess what? You are going to make yourself right. So how are your thoughts impacting your actions? How are your thoughts impacting what you are deciding to do or not do? Because once you get very clear on what your thoughts are, then you can take a step back and consciously decide, okay, hey, that thought is not serving me. I'm not going to do that anymore. And again, this is easier said than done, but you have to create that level of awareness where you're able to see the thoughts that you're having and be able to separate yourself to the thought and say, you know what, that's not true. Because here's the thing, I don't know how many thoughts we have a day. It's literally tens of thousands of thoughts, something like that. And if the majority of your thoughts are thoughts that don't empower you, or thoughts that are keeping you small, that are keeping you away from transforming your health in 2026, well, why continue to follow through on those thoughts? Why not instead take the time to examine your own thoughts, to journal, to reflect, to have some time from introspection, and actually challenge those things that are coming up. Because again, if it's not serving you and it's not helping you get to where you want to go, why continue to do it? And you might think it's quote unquote comfortable, but it's actually not. Because again, if you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're not satisfied with who you see, if you are walking around in life and you are tired and your energy is not where you want it to be, or you're constantly stressed or you're constantly irritated, then things get to change. And I'm speaking from experience. I was that guy in many ways. When I was in my early 20s, around 23, before I started my transformation, I hated who I saw in the mirror. I literally every day when I had a corporate job, maybe not every day, but 4 out of 5 days out of the week, I'm scruffing my food down really fast during lunch in my car and then taking a nap in my car for 30 minutes because I was so tired. And this is at 23 where my energy should be the best. But it wasn't until I decided that where I was no longer acceptable. And I was so tired of how I felt about myself and how I was operating in life. I said, you know what? I'm going to make this change. But it took being so discontent with who I was, not saying that I'm going to do it later, and literally focus on it on the now. And now I fast forward almost, 23, I'm 37, 14 years later, and I have completely transformed my health. And I'm not saying this to brag, but just to speak from a place of fact. And I've helped dozens of my clients do the same, to where they've had lifelong change, lifelong transformation. But it started with getting rid of their excuses and saying that I'm not going to be a slave to these thoughts that are not helping me. And the third and final reason I want to share why transforming your health is so hard is because of your fear of failure. This is a common theme that constantly comes up with clients that I work with, whether it's an VP of product, whether it is a partner at a large international law firm. I continue to hear indirectly how afraid these people are to fail. And I get it. You're a high achiever. You want to win. And this podcast is all about winning everywhere, including your health. So we have to understand, what is this fear of failure? This is what I believe it is. Number one, when we think of the fear of failure, we start to create a story in our mind of, what does this mean about me if I don't have the result that I want? What does it mean about me, or what does it say about me, my character, my identity, if I really go after creating this change and this change doesn't happen? Because once you drop the excuses like I just talked about and we get past that, the fear of failure is that there's going to be no one to blame if you don't get the result that you want. Say you want to lose 50 pounds and you don't lose the 50 pounds and you tell all these people about your goals and it doesn't happen. That fear of failure is that you're calling yourself a failure, or you think that it's going to make you look bad in some type of way. And then it's this fear of, what are other people going to think about me? What is this going to say about my character? And it's just a huge spiral that goes. And I understand what that's like. Again, I've been there. I've seen that. And I know what it's like to look like that in business, where it's like, hey, what happens if I go after this big thing in business and it doesn't happen? What if I say I want to work with this many people and I fall short? Again, that's the mind working. And I would even say that's the devil working, the enemy working, to try to be in our thoughts and to be afraid of our own falling short, where in reality, to me, there's no such thing as failure. It's more so a learning lesson. It's how can I articulate a goal that I have, create a plan to put myself in the right position to get to that goal, go through that process, and then if I don't hit that end mark that I think I'm going to hit, well, what lesson do I learn along the way so I don't make that same mistake twice? Because at the end of the day, we're not going to be perfect in our execution, or we're not going to be perfect in getting to our goal, but we can be excellent. And being excellent is following through on the steps and seeing what comes up. And if I fall short, learning about how I can change those steps going forward and reiterating the process so that I can move in a better direction. Because that's what it's all about. It's not being afraid of failing, but to me, it's more about being afraid of not going for it, being afraid of not giving it your best attempt. Because at the end of the day, that's when you're going to look in the mirror and just be like, what the heck? Why aren't I doing this? Why did I let another day, week, month, year go by complaining about the same exact thing? And oftentimes it is this fear of failure. And what I've noticed is that when the fear of failure is for ourself, or even when it's, hey, I have to hold myself accountable, it typically doesn't work. And that's the reason why I see many high performers just like you crush it at work and have a high level of execution and get things done because they feel like they have a lot of skin in the game. And the fear is, or the fear of failure there is getting fired or not getting the promotion or not progressing. And when you think about it in that way, that might lead you to get into more action. That might inspire you to do the things even when you don't feel like doing it. But when it comes to something like your own health, it's so easy to kick the can down the road. It's so easy to live in the land of tomorrow. But here's the trap. Tomorrow keeps coming and you keep saying tomorrow, so you're never actually present about it. You never make it a now action item. And before you know it, years go by and your health is in a worse place. Or years go by, a decade goes by, and now you're on a host of medications just to live a pretty low energy, low fulfillment, lot of pain type of life. And it doesn't have to be that way. And what's so important is to understand that you don't have to fear failure. No one's going to judge you if you don't make it happen. And honestly, if people do judge you, who cares? Who cares about these other people? How do you look in the mirror and be happy with who you see? How do you make sure that you're doing the right things each and every day to move you closer to whatever that health goal is or overall goal is in life? But instead of being afraid of failure, be afraid of not going after it and decide that you're going to go after it anyways. So we talked about the 3 things that make transformation hard, right? And those are just some of the 3. There's many more out there. I'm sure you can resonate with some of those and you have your own that you can think of. But now I really want to focus on how do you make it easier? How do you put yourself in a better position to actually reach your health goals in 2026 and beyond? And here's the first one, and this one's a newer one for me, but it really encapsulates all of the other ways of how we make it easier. But here it is. Instead of putting it all on yourself to make these changes, I want you to instead focus on God in this process. Because God, at the end of the day, has your best interest at heart. And God can take on any and all challenges. And God is with you in each and everything that you do. And whether you believe in God or not, God is there. I firmly believe that and have faith in that with all of my heart. And I can look at my own journey and see how God has been there every step of the way, especially during the times that I thought life was as difficult as it could be, especially when my mom died and how she died, especially when, I had all of these injuries coming up in, middle school, early in high school, even in college, that prevented me from maybe going into professional sports, right? It's understanding that God is always with you and God is who you really want to please in this process. God wants you to be taking care of yourself at every level. He wants you to take care of yourself in your body. He wants you to take care of yourself in your mind. And he wants you to take care of yourself in your spirit. God wants us to be healthy. He wants us to do everything that we do in life as a way to please him, as a way to honor him, as a way to make him happy. And here's the thing, and I know this for myself and with other clients that I've worked with and I'm currently working with who believe in God. The things that might feel overwhelming to me, I need to take that thing that's overwhelming, that's causing anxiety, and give it to God and understand that God is going to guide me throughout the process. So for you in your health, instead of it putting all on you to make these huge changes, to get away from all these temptations that you have around food and alcohol and constant scrolling and distraction, all of it, give it to God. Allow God to be with you every step of the way in your journey, because your body is your temple and God gave you that body. So why not have a mindset that you're going to honor God through how you treat your body, your mind, and your spirit? This includes how you eat, putting good food into your body and deciding not to put bad food into your body. And it's not about being perfect, but doing it in a way that makes sense. I'm a firm believer in the 80-20 rule, but the key is to actually be doing it 80% of the time. So if you're having roughly 20 meals a week, that means 16 times that you eat, you're eating good, real quality food. And if for 4 times you want to have the cookie, the snack, the whatever, you give yourself the opportunity to do it. Something I think so amazing about God is that he has endless amount of grace for us. So how can you have grace for yourself when you quote unquote slip up, when you don't do everything perfectly? Because we weren't designed to be perfect. Only Jesus was perfect. Only God is perfect. So let's understand that we're not meant to be perfect. So if you have God close to you and you mess up in your process, give yourself some grace, as opposed to having this all or nothing mentality that I see all the time in high performers, where the moment you eat something you shouldn't eat, you miss a workout, you stay up too late, you drink too much, whatever, that you just say, oh, forget it, this isn't important, let me go ahead and just start over on Monday, or I'll start over next month, or I'll start over in 2027. We're not about that anymore. And if you can keep God close to you in this process, you are going to have so much more success. And this has been huge for me myself. Even with as much stuff as I know, as much stuff as I incorporate, I am not perfect. There are times where I overindulge, where I overeat. And yeah, it'll be all grass-fed, organic, wild caught, this, that, the other. But again, if I'm eating too much and I'm being gluttonous, right? I don't have a problem with alcohol. I don't have a problem with drugs, but my thing can be gluttony. And gluttony is a big sin in the Bible, or it's a sin in the Bible, right? And that's something that we don't talk about enough as a society, or we don't look at it as the problem that it is, because in America, it is so quote unquote common. It's not normal. It's common for us to overeat, overdrink, overindulge, and hence makes it so difficult for us to transform our health in the process. But when I think about God and his infinite grace, that gives me the peace of mind to be diligent in my process. And even when I'm not perfect and I slip up, boom, I jump right back to it. So use your body, or think about using your body as a way to honor God. And what you put in your mouth is a direct reflection of that. So you could just use that one, and that would make every part of your transformation of your health easier. But I'm going to throw 2 more things out there. The second one is be okay with being messy in the process. Again, this goes back into not focusing on perfection. There's a distinction I use between being perfect and being excellent. And being excellent is doing your best within every situation, and knowing that every situation is going to look different. Your best is going to look different on 8 hours of sleep versus 5 hours of sleep. Your best is going to look different when everyone around you is supportive and calm. And your best is going to look different when you got people talking crap to you, or saying what you're doing isn't right, or trying to make you feel guilty for not wanting to drink the alcohol with them, or eat whatever food. Like, your best and excellence is going to look different in all of these situations. And yes, you might slip up as a result, and be okay with the process being messy. You might go out, have all of these grand plans of like, hey, this is how I'm going to go about putting my food together for the week. And you're going to meal prep and you have all your stuff ready. And then you might forget your food at home one day. Or there might be a day at work where people brought in pizza or cake for a birthday and you have a piece. Again, it's not about being perfect, right? Uphold your standards, keep your standards high. But understand, you're not going to be perfect. It can be messy in the process. You might miss a day at the gym. You might whatever. Cool. Get right back to the right action. Get right back into the swing of things. And if you can be okay with the process being messy, especially in the beginning, you're going to make this process easier for you. And the final thing I'll share in order to make things easier is to hire a coach. I was having a conversation with a client that we're getting ready to finish up our 6-month partnership together here in his coaching program. And for him, there's no shortage of knowledge. A lot of the things that we did, I would say 85% of it, he knew what to do. But the problem was he wasn't holding himself accountable to it. And that's why having a coach is so important. Is when you have a coach, that's someone that can hold you accountable. When you have a coach, and obviously you're paying that coach, you have more skin in the game because you want to, at minimum, protect your investment, if not maximize your investment, which I would say is the important part of it. But again, when there's not that level of accountability, or you don't have a coach, or you don't have someone who can actually look at you and point out where these blind spots are that you have, then again, you're going to easily kick the can down the road, live in the land of tomorrow. And that's the biggest benefit that my clients have understood, is that when they have me as their coach, I, number one, have their best interest at heart. So when I am coaching them hard and I am pointing out when they're being hypocritical, or when they're playing small, or when they're trying to sell out on themselves, I'm the first person to point it out and say, hey, you said that you were going to do ABC 1, 2, 3 this week, and you didn't do it. Okay, cool. We were able to put that on the table. We can see it didn't get done. I'm going to ask you what happened. Hey, what got in the way? Whether it's something tangible that happened during the week that we need to troubleshoot and overcome, or if it's something intangible that is a thought in your head, like we just talked about earlier, how do we talk through that narrative? How do we talk through these limiting beliefs so that you can get on the other side of it and get into right action? Because one of the biggest parts that I love about being a coach is helping you shape the identity of the person who gets the results. That's what the dynamic identity is. It's making sure that your identity is constantly evolving to allow you to be the person who has the results that you want to have. So it's not about figuring out like, oh, what are like the little tactics to get healthy? Oh, what should I eat? Or what diet should I go on? What's the new workout program to jump on? Like, no, like, how do we turn you into the person who does all these things, where being healthy is simply a product of who you are? It's not about little tactics. It's about creating an identity where you do the things point blank. And as long as you're keeping God close to you in this process, as long as you're okay with being messy in this process, and if you hire a coach, whether it's me or somebody else, that's going to keep you accountable in the same way that you're held accountable in your career, then you are going to make your transformation not only easier, but you're going to make it be successful. You're going to follow through. You're going to be consistent overall, and you're going to love who you see in the mirror. You're going to have so much energy, and you're going to be accomplishing so much more at work and at home because you're using your health as a catalyst to do all of that. So I appreciate your time. This is all about how you can understand what are the things that are stopping you from reaching your health goals, what's making it difficult, and now what you can do to make it easier going forward. If this was helpful, I would appreciate it if you send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know what resonated for you. Let me know what makes it most difficult for you to reach your goals, and maybe what's something that you're going to take from this and apply to your life. You can find me on Instagram at Alvey Thompson. And if there's anyone in your friendships, anyone in your sphere of influence, any of your colleagues, the people that work under you that you think would benefit from this, be sure to share it with them. I appreciate you. I honor you. Stay dynamic, my friend. You can too.